原宣多媒体报道，1月18日上午，行动反对仇恨联盟召开网上会议。会议的主题是行动反对仇恨联盟以教育为宗旨的解决仇恨犯罪方案迎来了新的2023年。由于仇恨的种子能在儿童早期时就会生根发芽了，因而需要采取一个明智的教育计划来帮助根除它们的生长。行动反对仇恨联盟组织成立于2022年，致力于寻找和实施针对仇恨犯罪的解决方案。在政府领导人、社区成员、专家、执法人员、教育工作者、政策制定者和意见领袖的合作下，行动反对仇恨联盟团体取得了显著进展，开始了坦诚的对话，确定了仇恨犯罪的根本原因以及导致仇恨犯罪受害者再次受害的处理方式。他们解决方案重点和基本原则是为各级教育机构从学前班到大学进行编程，为培养学生提供一个讨论、开放、表达的平台，以及一个前后一致、清晰的目标，使包容性和多样性不是表现在他们做了什么，而是在他们真正的本质是什么。但同样重要的是，让不同年级的学生参与减少仇恨犯罪和仇恨事件的活动。这些措施作为他们在上学期间参与公民活动的一部分。参加本次会议的主讲嘉宾有圣拉蒙警察局长丹顿·卡尔森、学校执行理事会主席凯文·奥马拉博士、奥兰治县教育委员会董事蒂姆·肖、加州大学伯克利分校政治学专业大二学生戴维·陈、预备学校大三学生 Aidan Chao.
District, including transportation and education. Newman was recently named chairman of the prestigious Senate Education Committee. Senator Newman is a Yale graduate and with his wife Darcy resides in Fullerton, California. By the Act Against Hate Alliance with grant funding from the California State Library's Stop the Hate program. The nation just celebrated the life of the Reverend Martin Luther King 2 days ago. I'd like to read one of his quotes that's appropriate today as it was when he spoke them.
Act Against Hate Alliance was founded in 2022 to focus on finding and implementing solutions against hate crimes. With collaboration from government leaders, community members, experts, law enforcement, educators, policymakers, and thought leaders. Act Against Hate Alliance's progress is already notable with an honest dialogue, which has started identifying root causes of hate crimes. One fundamental key to the Act Against Hate Alliance's solutions focus is programming for education institutions from preschool to university, programming that provides students with a nurturing platform for discussion, open expression, and a consistent, clear foundation that makes inclusion and diversity second nature to them. But just as important is getting students at different levels involved in minimizing hate crimes and hate incidents as a part of their civic engagement while attending school.
The recent rise of white nationalism and our nation's long and troubled history of discrimination have resulted in some of the highest hate crime rates California has seen in decades. According to a 2021 report from the Attorney General's office, since 2012, the number of reported hate crimes in California has increased almost 90%. Specifically, anti-transgender and gender nonconforming hate crimes have increased by 221%. Anti-Semitic hate crimes have increased by 67%. And anti-Asian hate crimes have increased by an unfathomable 974%. These numbers are obviously very troubling. What's more, though, is that we know that they actually barely scratch the surface, since actual hate crimes tend to be severely underreported. In fact, a 2021 report from the U.S. Department of Justice found that more than 40% of violent hate crime victims actually never report their incidents to law enforcement. It's a sad reality, though, that too many people, especially first-generation Californians, actually don't recognize when hateful behavior to which they've been subjected constitutes an actual crime. Even worse, there's still a fairly pervasive sentiment that the objects of hateful acts simply need to tough it out and move on with their lives and not bother the police. The current reality, however, underscores an important message that hate and hateful action have no place in California. It alters the course of a victim's life, it endangers the public safety, and it attacks the very notion of what it means to be an American. So it's imperative that we respond to hate with a multifaceted approach that promotes public education on prevention, intervention, and supportive services for victims. With that in mind, I'd like to thank my colleagues in the API Legislative Caucus for securing a record $165 million over 3 years.
Have the best police job in the world, being the leader of the San Ramon Police Department. And I think that's a key component involved in this, is that when I saw what had taken place on Christmas Eve, I was able to take pretty quick actions. And a lot of that is based on what we've been able to develop here in San Ramon and what we've been able to really enhance as far as our community outreach system. So we've been very involved in our local social media and pushing out to the community and having a relationship in a service-based organization here. And so when this came about, it was actually Christmas morning. And as you can imagine, I was in the family room and we were in the midst of opening presents, and there was a notification that came across from someone on social media who had tagged our organization. And it involved the video that was posted by the victims in this case on TikTok. And so taking the platforms we've developed and the relationship that we've had with the community, we were able to boost that out and say, hey, if anyone knows who these individuals are, please have them contact us so we can take the appropriate action. And I think the important component in that is that we're using the platforms that we had developed to really increase our engagement with the community to be able to contact the people who are the victims here. And I think you mentioned several times, and it's already come up probably 3 or 4 times, the value of education. And in this situation, that was directly related to what we were able to do, because we're very familiar with the California laws that are in place as they surround hate crime and hate speech and what it takes to get to a criminal level. And in this case, understanding and knowing where freedom of speech ends and hate speech begins was critical. We used in the penal code, it's 422.6. subsection A. And what that has, the California legislature has put in place for a tool for us in law enforcement, is when you take that speech and it rises to the level where you're intimidating, you're threatening, you're disturbing the public peace of someone based on their perceived characteristics, then you've risen to a criminal level. And knowing that and having that
helped turn the tide in the 20th century, Mendez versus City of Westminster. And we recently commemorated that anniversary, and that really helped lay the groundwork for desegregating schools across our whole country. So at our Orange County Department of Education, we do try to commemorate the different months that come up, Native American History Month and these other, things that come up every year. We make mention of and try to do that. But of course, the education really is the key to combating hate and teaching young people to love all of God's children. And that work is ideally done in the home by the parents as they raise their children to, love and respect everybody. But at the schools where we can try to play a role, and obviously from an early age, students are in classrooms with other students from different races, and learning to appreciate and learn about different cultures and different histories and people who might have come from a different part of the world. One anecdote I wanted to share, if I could for a moment. When I was in graduate school, I had a professor who he'd gotten his political science PhD, and for his doctorate paper, he wanted to research what causes political conflict within countries. And he approached this topic hypothesizing that it would probably be a religious difference or perhaps an ethnic difference. And these kind of differences cause political strife. But as he did his research, he actually came to the conclusion that if you could put your finger on one single thing, it was differences in language that often tended to be a barrier in countries. And he pointed to the divisions that had happened earlier in Canada's history, where the French and English populations were disagreeing and stuff. So
in K-12 education and charter schools and some private schools as well. My partner, Dr. David Negron, is a first-generation Mexican-American. And we have over 50% of our consultants, and we have over 70 are minorities or women or both. We're the only firm in the United States that has that kind of background. We take this very, very seriously. In schools, at least in the K-12 situation, most of these episodes are bullying kinds of episodes or hate speech or graffiti scrawled on bathrooms. And we have mandated that boards now that we work with have a strong presence on anti-hate kind of policies and procedures in place. The first thing that we mandate with boards that we work with, or strongly encourage at least, is to have a series of solidarity events against hate and bias throughout their community, usually 8 to 10 per school year. And there's several segments to that. I'm happy to discuss that more with anyone who would like to have a further conversation. And
all youth. Personally, I will be piloting our program within my school and the communities to which I belong. For example, I have worked with Arcadia City legislatures to explore implementing the same bill that Senator Newman is introducing, and I will do so for many cities in the San Gabriel Valley. I'm also introducing the Act Against Hate Alliance Youth Initiative in the form of club programs at Flintridge Prep and other local schools so that students can take action with me. This is not a one-man job. This is something that our whole generation has to get involved with. With the level of apathy that we see today, we must take the initiative on making a change.
Hate crimes up here in the Bay Area, specifically in the San Francisco and Oakland area, where I've seen older generation Chinese elderly attacked, brutally beaten for almost no reason at all. Sometimes it's as if this hate is completely inexplainable. There's no reason to it. And it just seems, it's very sad and it's very discouraging, I think, for our society to look upon. But I believe that the answer to this question is not just true civic engagement and the promotion of appreciation for diversity of thought, but it's consistently choosing compassion and making this compassion known. And I believe that that is possible through the younger generation. As our culture goes through ongoing changes, it's important for us to remember that if we can positively influence the younger generation and really start this movement that I know that Senator Hoff and May are embarking on, this is how we're going to be able to flush hate little by little over the course of time. And here on Berkeley's campus, we are pretty much surrounded and live every single day with people from every single background, ethnicity, and identity. And it's because we have this chance to really develop an understanding between everyone as we work together on different projects, on different student campus organizations, to even just working with people in class. It resonates with the way that we all perceive, treat, and appreciate one another. And so just imagine if our community and our public were able to engage with one another at the same level that students on campus are able to. Just imagine the level of understanding that we would have for one another. And I personally believe that we need to take this stance amongst our younger generation as we continue to power students at every single campus at the local level. Because combating hate and hate crimes now also means combating hate and hate crimes for the future. Through the younger generation, we will be able to start to build up a lot of these initiatives that Aidan just mentioned, as he and I partner with each other to bring in high schoolers and colleges across the entire state to not just bring up the discussion, but actually take a stance against this. This lack of civic engagement that we find here in our community is amendable. Right now, because of the continuous political polarization that we see at our country's level, we know that this is funneling down and we know the way that this is impacting our community. We see it in our social media. That is something that's also universal. The hate that we see, that's part.
延续多媒体报道，谢谢收看。